everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here to see the Baddest Feminists, the Guerrilla Girls, and Roxane Gay. My name is Thisbe Gensler. I'm one of the co-curators of the exhibition How to Be a Guerrilla Girl, which is on view at the Getty Research Institute right now. And if you haven't had a chance to see it, the galleries are open till 9 o'clock tonight, so please go check it out after the program. The exhibition draws from the Guerrilla Girls archive to tell the story of 40 years of creative complaining. Since their founding in the 1980s, this anonymous collective of activist artists has been agitating for a feminist revolution in the art world and beyond. Through their iconic poster campaigns, public protest actions, media appearances, and commitment to equity for women and artists of color, their bold, outrageous, and undeniably funny works continue to challenge institutions of power today. The exhibition highlights the strategies that made their work historic, the collaborative processes of their dynamic group, rigorous research and data analysis, innovative distribution methods from the mail to merch, and of course, their anonymity and notorious gorilla masks. Our hope is that these strategies will inspire you to take action as well. It has been my honor to collaborate with two founding members of the Guerrilla Girls under their aliases Frida Kahlo and Kata Kolvitz to bring this exhibition to life, including a new commission for the lobby of the GRI that interrogates the Getty's own collection of paintings, reflecting on how women have been represented in art and art history across centuries, and reminding us to hold up a mirror to our own practices. Throughout the show, you'll see us turn the lens upon ourselves, examining our collections, acquisitions, and exhibition histories through the intersectional feminist perspective that their work demands. And that's also why we invited the bad feminist herself, Roxane Gay, to join the Guerrilla Girls in conversation tonight. Roxane is a best-selling writer, cultural critic, publisher, producer, and art collector, and one of the few people to own the complete Guerrilla Girls portfolio. Their dialogue tonight will help remind us of the power of the arts and the responsibility of institutions like the Getty to tell the histories not just of power, but of all people, especially in this moment of renewed cultural conflict. Before we begin, I want to thank everyone that took part in making the exhibition and tonight's program possible, our AV team, events, programming. Thank you for your support. And I also want to thank all the gorillas out there. You know who you are. So now please join me in welcoming the Guerrilla Girls and Kata and Frida and Roxane Gay.
Hello, Los Angeles. It is great to be here on this, whatever day today is, evening, Saturday, I believe, and the weather's cooperating, no rain. But it is a real pleasure to be here with the Guerrilla Girls, or two of the Guerrilla Girls at any rate. And so we're just gonna have a conversation, and then at the end we'll open it up for questions that are actually questions. Which means they have to end in a question mark. So you can't say, this is more of a comment, because that's for your friends or your diary or your blog. But to get us started, I'm always curious, especially as a writer, about origin stories. And so what is your origin story as Guerrilla Girls?
So we were a bunch of artists who saw, even though some of us were pretty successful, how difficult it was in the early 1980s for women artists to get any attention, any shows. There was just rampant discrimination. Men were considered the great artists, and women were considered the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. And when we all talked about this, we really got angry. And we got the idea, how are we gonna talk to anybody? This was before the internet. how can we get our message out and get it out in a different way than it's ever been seen before? So for the number one, we decided we gotta do street posters. I mean, we love street posters anyway, and still do, and no one can stop that. You know, you can't be in a newspaper, you're not gonna get an article, but if you slap something up in the middle of the night on the street, especially in New York City, where there are tons of people, people will see it instantly. And that's what we did. But in addition to that, you know, we can really understand it now, maybe not then. From the very beginning, we had a kind of new idea about how to do political art. Don't just point to something that says, this is bad. Try to find a new way into it, a way that's unforgettable. Use facts, use humor, and see, and really try to change people's minds.
And fake fur. Facts, humor, and fake fur.
Well, who doesn't love a nice fake fur? A chinchilla, perhaps. So you guys have been doing this for more than 40 years now. How has your mission evolved?
Well, it usually evolves by listening and, you know, keeping our ears to the ground. When we first started, no one believed what we were saying. So we started to use statistics, and it was always about making some outrageous statement and then answering it with information. Early on, we were just talking about the representation of women and artists of color in galleries. Then we started to think about the way art criticism is written. Then we looked at the way museums, right now we're really interested in the way museums are organized. And if any of you have seen the project that we did in the lobby of the GRI, that really is about the aestheticization of violence against women throughout art history. You look at a picture of a beautiful Venus and you think, isn't that a wonderful picture? And then you realize that she's in prison and she's being raped. So we're really interested in the way art history has conditioned us to accept a lot of misogyny. So that's sort of how it's evolving, and it's the way thinking happens. You think about this, then you think about that, and then you think about another thing.
One of the things that characterizes a lot of your work is the rigor of facts. And we are living in a very horrible time where facts and expertise are constantly being undermined by bad faith political actors. So how did you begin to, just being honest, how did you think about rigor and research when you first started, and how do you maintain that rigor across the decades?
I don't know if you can call it rigor. I mean, especially in the beginning, we used to go through magazines to see how many artists were in galleries. And I'm sure our statistics weren't always perfect and probably still aren't today. But what we had in our favor was the statistics were so bad. So, you know, today somebody can just come out with some piece of crap with numbers that don't exist at all. But these things were so weighted, you know, there were so much discrimination against artists of color and any women artists, and so we were. It's a horrible situation, but we were lucky that even though I'm sure we didn't do that great a job, it sounded really good.
Well, sometimes the truth is your best weapon. You are also known for being anonymous, and you wear these very comfortable gorilla masks. Why anonymity? And have you ever considered taking another approach and making yourselves known?
Well, early on, we have to be honest, it was protective. Mm-hmm. You know, the art world was such a small, kind of clubby little place that the minute you got labeled as a complainer or a whiner, that was sort of the end of your career. I mean, the art world is so much built on impression and image. So to be honest, originally it was all about protecting us. And we wanted to be Gettyists, we wanted to be freedom fighters, we wanted to maybe appear anywhere. We could be Leo Castelli's secretary, we could be Frank Stella's proctologist. So the anonymity was great because we would be unidentified. And it just became part of the shtick. And it also allowed us to address a condition, not a personal situation, but a condition. So that people couldn't, critics couldn't disbelieve what we were saying because of something that we individually were. Besides, these masks are kind of wonderful.
I'm almost envious, but I'm good, I'm good.
I know where you can get one.
Do you? Oh, thank you. The Guerrilla store. How did you develop your aesthetic? Because it is a very distinct aesthetic, and it's one grounded in very bold imagery. There are a lot of underpinnings of graphic design. So I would love to hear about where it started, what informed it, and what you get out of it as an artist in terms of creating such distinct visual work.
So in a way, we just kind of use the strategies of advertising. You know, you tell somebody something they didn't know before in a kind of unforgettable way, if possible, and it makes them think about it. You know, in advertising, it might make them buy a Coca-Cola, but we wanted to tell them something they probably never knew before. And the reason that we started that way is because we were up against a wall that believed the art world was totally different than the art world we believed in. You know, we were experimental artists, all kinds of artists, doing incredible work and completely often left out and criticized for that very work we did. Today, a lot of that work is considered as important as anything else. But and also the other thing, excuse me, I meant to say this even first. In the beginning, we could only afford to do black and white posters because color was hugely expensive then. It wasn't like today, you can just do anything you want. And so our look, this special kind of look we developed was almost by chance because it was big, bold, black and white. You could read it really easily, you got the idea, and then it either changed your mind or you walked away angry.
Or both. You never know. And what informed your feminism? Because almost every feminist also has an origin story, something that incited their idea that women are people and should have bodily autonomy. I know that's heretical. I know that's crazy talk. But when did you first know you were a person?
Oh, wow. That's a very deep question.
I know. That's what I do.
I think for me personally, it was when my father said, "Oh, you want to be educated? Would you like to be a nurse or a teacher?" And I decided then I didn't want to be either, although I did end up becoming one of them. But, you know, when I was in school, women's studies didn't exist. So there are huge holes in my knowledge of women's history, but on the other hand, I'm learning it as I go. Mm-hmm. And that's a pretty exciting situation to be in when we confront, well, what should we do about this? Well, you got to do some backup research. So I really am still evolving.
Yes, what about you, Kata?
God, that's a hard one. I mean,
Makeup.
I think I was pretty late to feminism for some reason, because people would come up and say, well, are you a feminist? And this is when I was quite young. it was a big movement starting already. And I don't know, I just was always one of those girls who was what they used to call a tomboy and just had a different attitude toward it. So it was a real revelation when I started reading about things and seeing how deep this prejudice was against women. That's what made me a feminist.
And in feminism, we often talk about these generational divides. How are you, if at all, bringing younger women into the Guerrilla Girl project and passing this baton forward? Because the art world has evolved a bit, but anyone familiar with the art world knows that a lot of the problems you were talking about in 1985 and 1995 and 2005 and on are still happening now, and women and people of color, queer people, trans people are still woefully underrepresented in the art world, in the places where we can actually see art, engage with art, embrace it. And so what is the generational aspect of your work? What does that look like? Is it happening? And what do you hope for the future of the Guerrilla Girls?
Well, I've always been confused about first, second, third wave, feminists. We sort of always thought we were the undertow. Because I sort of see historical things as flowing one into the other rather than having divisions between them. We've had a lot of young members. I mean, Kat and I are the founding members, so do the math, and you realize, what our generation is. But we've always had younger members, and we've always learned from them. And it's just such a wealth of information and attitudes now, yourself, being a really important voice. So I have a lot of hope, and I think that when young women realize that their reproductive rights, are being really threatened, and that's such a major, that's a central life concern, that I think they're not going to take it anymore. And there's no going back on the fact that women now are, have access to education, they have access to professions that I always thought was way beyond my, my reach. So I don't think there's any going back. Sometimes it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, but there's no going back. And also, like 150 years of feminism is never going to completely overcome millennia of patriarchy.
Yes, and I think that's something we tend to forget in any sort of conversation about progress. It's like, look at history. History is long, but the history of feminism, which is also long, is not nearly as long. And there is a lot of work to do, but more than that, we're up against quite a lot. It's going to be okay. We're all going to get through this. How do the Guerrilla Girls collaborate?
I think the way, I would assume the way everyone here collaborates with somebody. Someone comes up with an idea and tries to work it out, and then others get involved and see it maybe in a little different way, and it makes it better, and if it makes it worse, we start all over again. And I think we've been really lucky to have a diverse group in a lot of different ways. So we would take on issues in a lot of different ways. And let's face it, some of our things, of course, are better than others, and people care about them better than others. But there's also just the fun of going back and forth with people. It can be a horror, but mostly it's, you have to get on that train and ride it. You have to try to love what other people are doing. That's what we all try to do, to push that rock up a hill. And the hill is very steep, and there's a really big rock that we have to push up.
I kind of like to say that we work hormonally.
Oh.
That just means working passionately and having your full self there. But I think part of what we do flies in the face of the way artists, are traditionally educated to be individualists and to be exceptional. And I think that also confused the art world, because all of a sudden there's this collective, and are we geniuses? No, we can't be geniuses because we're a group, So we challenge that. And I think it's not easy for artists who are traditionally educated to work together because they're irascible. It's part of this sort of screwed up capitalist system we have about exceptionalism and individualism and, winner take all and losers, be thrown away. I mean, the art world is sort of based on that idea of the Olympics, where one or two people win and the rest are forgotten. And we've really, that hasn't been our, our structure at all.
How do you balance the work of the collective with your individual work? Because you are also individual artists and many other things, nurse.
Yeah.
Oh, did I?
Actually, many of our members have been incredible artists and devoted to their work. And I think as founders, we have a little bit of another way of surviving, which is the Guerrilla Girls, as you all know, what we've done is blown up all over the world. And we love doing this work. But many times, I have to admit, it stops us from doing any of our other work. And I have to say that, I love my other work too, but I've never regretted 1 minute where I had to take 6 months, a year off, whatever, and focus only on the Guerrilla Girls. I mean, that too, I consider my work and equally important. And it's also important because we have dialogues with so many people also trying to do these kinds of things. And I'm talking about all of you, not just all the people we work with in our group.
So right now there's an exhibition of your work up here. You created a new piece. You're still actively doing work. What has it meant to have the Getty showcase your work and the history of the Guerrilla Girls in this way? Yes, absolutely. Please clap.
Well, our history with the Getty goes way, way back, even before the center was built here. There was one, courageous early curator who saw our work and supported it from the very beginning. And I think the structure of the Getty is really different because, as we were saying before, the Getty has all the dirty money it needs. It doesn't have to attract, any, dirty billionaire money out there anymore. So they have a certain autonomy and a certain independence. And the GRI, because it's a place where knowledge is protected and expanded and explored, and I truly believe our work, as much as it is a visual thing to look at, it is a body of knowledge. You can look at our work start to finish, and you can almost tell the history of the contemporary art world, within the work. I mean, you might know 1 or 2 or 3 of the standout projects, but each one of those projects was led up to by maybe a few things that are not as unforgettable, but they were important in the development of our ideas. And the Getty has always, always been supportive of us, and we are incredibly appreciative, and this does feel like home. And we're really happy that to this point, half of our archive is here, and it's protected, and it's available, and it was kind of a thrill and a wonderful privilege to work here. And also, we're working on a graphic novel, which is kind of the story of our history for Getty Pubs. So we're really excited about that, and I do want to ask you before the evening is over for some advice on how do you write a graphic novel.
I'm happy to answer that question. First, you Google, how do I write a graphic novel? Amazing answers will come up, but That's actually a good question, because when I wrote my first one, I had no idea, and I did actually Google, how do I write a graphic novel? And mixed bag of answers, mixed bag, and this was pre-AI slop, thank God. So fortunately, the mixed bag did have some gems, but especially because you are visual artists, I found that I wrote a script and then I handed it off to the artist and I didn't have to worry. And that was amazing. But I design each page where I do page 1, frame 2, frame 3, however many frames, and I think about what I want to have happen on the page, and then I think about what is the relationship of image and text going to be on this page. And each one has to be able to stand on its own so that if someone is just looking visually at the page, they can take something away. And if they just look at the text, they can take something away. And if they look at them together, they are really getting an embarrassment of riches. And that's how I try to approach each page, so that any kind of reader is going to be able to understand the story that I'm trying to tell. And so far, so good.
It is an incredibly complex process.
It is so much harder than I thought, because at first I was like, I read Archie comics growing up and so on. And I was like, oh, I mean, how hard could it be? That's on me.
I read Brenda Starr.
Oh, really? Oh, my wife loves Brenda Starr. She actually wrote an introduction for a reprint of a Brenda Starr thing. It's really amazing. And also, I have learned so much about Brenda Starr and Dale somebody, who wrote Brenda Starr. And yeah, anyway, I won't get into the Brenda Starr of it all, but excellent choice.
Basil St. John, wasn't that her boyfriend?
Mm-hmm. Basil St. Clair? Yes. St. John? Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, it's amazing what you learn through osmosis. Highly recommend marriage for that. I can also speak credibly about astronomy. Sorry. So we are living in a very, I don't even know what the word is. Shit is fucked up. And especially when it comes to xenophobia and the administration's rabid hunting of people of color to kidnap them and incarcerate them illegally. And I think a lot of us are struggling to figure out, how do we do activism against all of this? What lessons might we take from the way you have approached critiquing the art world? Not necessarily for critique, because critique abounds and is quite easy. They're bad. But how do we combat this in our communities, whether it's Minneapolis or right here in Los Angeles or in rural Maine?
I think the whole country is stuck on this right now, all the people like us, because we do need to find a way that actually will break through people's, all these people who are supporting this disgusting, daily horror. And it's hugely hard to do that. I guess my only advice is one step at a time. And when you look at the demonstrations, you always see these incredibly creative things. But there's got to be some breakthrough thing. The politicians, I think, are doing a terrible job of talking about it. They're not convincing the ones who are against it. They're not convincing anyone. They're not making it happen. I just keep thinking about our strategy of trying to come up with something that people haven't seen before and a new way of looking at it. But this is such a tough one, and it's so disgusting, and people are dying. It's really, really hard to do that. The politicians really got to get better at talking, though. That might help a little.
I mean, they have like one job. And they cannot craft a credible story about how to oppose fascism. It's really, really surprising. It's really surprising, because they can tell all kinds of stories when they text my phone all day. My new hobby is typing stop.
I think we have to, first of all, figure out, because we've always thought about, how do you change someone's mind? Rather than confronting, how do you convert? How do you transform? That's really hard when you're up against people who have a different set of facts. than you work with. That's tough. So why not just flood the, flood the, flood the racehorse, flood the roads with information and record. A lot of the recordings, the videos just are irrefutable and shocking, and sometimes they say more than the words do.
They do.
One just other little thing. I also think that another real problem here is that critical thinking is not taught in our schools. And it's not the students' fault, but they come out without really being able to evaluate things. I mean, evaluating in your own way is what we do in life, but just looking at what some, celebrity looks like, or even the evil hair, disgusting president, a lot of people just take that in consideration, and they really don't know. That's a breakdown in education. I think we've got to somehow deal with that.
Yes, it's a breakdown in a lot of things. I think a lot of the systems that we thought were sturdy, reliable, functioning are not. And one of the key things that you've done over the course of your careers as Guerrilla Girls is call out the systems, point out the inadequacies of the systems. Do you think that the art world is changing? Has it changed? Have you seen results from your activism, or do you feel like you're having the same conversation now that you were having in 1985?
I think a lot of things have changed. I think the consciousness of the art, of people in the art world has changed. It was unbelievable, the things that were said back in the 80s. Women and artists of color just don't make work that's part of the contemporary dialogue. That's a quote, from an art dealer. They would never say that now. And so many critics and curators and historians used words like quality. That argument doesn't fly at all now. So I think a lot of the people who participate in the art world have changed, have a different expectation and a different change. However, the institutional structures have not, because let's face it, when you make an object that can be owned by one person in one place at a time, it's going to become a commodity. And the money behind the art world right now in the art market is still what it used to be, maybe even more so, because art now has become, an asset. So I think until that changes, until we can figure out a way, for art not to be that kind of a commodity, and look at our posters. If you own a Guerrilla Girl poster that you paid $30 for, you have the same thing that's in 50 museums all over the world. So you have an artwork. Until we can somehow change that, I think it's pretty much going to be stagnant.
Could I say one thing? Because I think everything you said is of course absolutely right. But the other side of it is, and this is, we all, I think, in this room can understand this, you cannot stop creative people from doing work. And that includes artists, writers, everybody. So people will always be doing great work. The system may not accept them, so their audience might be smaller, or they might have to die before they get an audience. But that's why we have a culture. Without that, there would be no culture. It can't just be what Frida was saying, what wealthy people were told by their wealthy, people who tell them what to buy. That is not the world of art. The world of art is really people putting their whole lives into things and doing it their own way, so that when we look at it, we say, yeah, I never saw that before, I get it. I get it. And we go on to want to make more work.
How do we find ways in the art world to prioritize creativity and community over commodity? Now, we know, the world is, we live in a capitalist world, and artists need to pay bills, unfortunately. We all do. So how do we balance that understanding of some of the underpinnings of the art world while preserving the best parts, which are indeed artists making and putting that creativity into the world?
I find it interesting to look at other cultural traditions of art making, and in particularly some of my indigenous neighbors, to see how everyone is a maker. Mm-hmm. And it's about making a culture. It's not about upending, and becoming a competitive with one another. I think that it's the capitalist art world that makes artists competitive. Mm-hmm. And then also the idea that no matter what, art is important. It is important. It's part of who we are. It's our soul. It's not a question of what's in and out of fashion. And being an artist and doing creative work, whether you're making money at it or not, it serves a social purpose. In your own life and in your own community, and we all need it. I mean, the idea that there were as many artists in Delft in the Renaissance as there were bakers is kind of interesting, because now you look at many museums and they all want the same 5 artists. Mm-hmm. And as the world gets bigger and bigger, the idea of who the masterpieces are becomes smaller and smaller. And in our early research on the Whitney Biennial, we realized that over time, the Whitney Biennial, the exhibition, became a smaller and smaller exhibition as the art culture in New York City got bigger and bigger. So there was something about the structure of the art world that wanted to narrow the idea of an artist as a genius.
Mm-hmm. Do artists have a responsibility to be activists?
Do we have a responsibility to be activists?
Yes.
Hell yeah. I mean, as someone who's, was a baby activist and then a little older activist and now a really old activist, I would say it's a great thing to do whatever you can, against all odds, to try to make some inroads in this disgusting system we have.
Excellent. I lost my train of thought. How do you deal with criticism? Because inevitably, when you put yourself into the world creatively, but especially as an activist, when people oftentimes want to believe that we can create art or writing or any other form of creativity in a vacuum without influence from the actual world, there is going to be pushback. And so how have you dealt with that kind of pushback over the years?
You put your gorilla mask on and ignore it. I always found criticism kind of useful. Early on, we would put posters up in the streets of Soho at late Friday night, and would go out on Saturday morning and hang out around the posters and hear what people had to say about them. And oftentimes, we got ideas for our next poster from people's reaction to it. So, I mean, if criticism is constructive and valuable, it can be a tool. If it's cruel and nasty and, it can be very useless.
Mm-hmm. That is true. I remember all of my critics.
You need a gorilla mask.
I do. Unfortunately, there is no way to gorilla mask one's writing. I suppose you could just write anonymously, which people do all the time, but I am too vain for that. No, thank you. And so this kind of connects back to anonymity. What are the pleasures of anonymity and what are the liabilities?
Well, the liability is, you work your whole life and no one knows about it, and you don't get any credit for it. And that is what it is. And, we're stuck with our anonymity. I don't think it really matters anymore, because the work is really the thing. That's what people respond to. That's what they see all over the world. I mean, we're not there, pointing to it for them. And, it seemed hugely important at the beginning because we felt we would be attacked, people, our careers would be hurt, all that kind of thing. But now it's just kind of makes us a little more delicious.
That's a great adjective. Delicious. I will have to figure that out later and see if you are in fact delicious. I think you are, but I will sample the goods.
Well, I would have a better word. That just came
No,
into
I love
my-
delicious.
It just came into my brain. What can I say?
What sustains you to keep doing this work 4 decades on?
Oh, it's so much fun. I've got 2 personas. I can slide back and forth between them. And I kind of love being out as a commoner, it's just myself listening to people. And it's really interesting to see how they treat you then when you tell them who you are. And it also keeps you from being too bored. It gives you an escape. But I know every project is a challenge for the next one. I mean, I think of it as research. Not all of us do that, but I think of it as research. It's like, well, what does this tell me that I didn't know before, and what will this lead me to in the next one? I'm so excited about the commission we did in the lobby because, gosh, there are so many paintings in the world where you could have the characters step out of the paintings and tell you what's happening to them.
Absolutely. And Kata, what about you? What sustains you?
It's, doing the work is just so great. You're talking about something awful, and you have some fantastic idea that you think might have an effect. And I just love doing it. And everything that happens in terms of how big we can do it, the idea, the new ways of printing come up. It's so exciting, to be able to do something like from there to there in this whole auditorium. It gives us a whole nother thing. But mostly it is about trying to think about what might change people's minds and what might get them excited and get them, and it's not like nobody is. We're all trying to do this. Everyone here, I'm sure, is trying to do this. And don't you all love trying it too, whether it works out or not, whether you do one thing, it works, you do one thing, it doesn't, and you do another, and you do another, and you do another. And that's how we do things, humans.
One thing that keeps me going is when we get a letter from someone in a faraway place who knows what we're doing. It's like, how did you know about that? We spent a long weekend last spring in Bulgaria, and who would know that a crowd would come out to see us in Bulgaria and that there'd be a mini riot.
Oh.
Sorry.
No, you can share whatever you'd like about the mini riot in Bulgaria.
Well, we did an exhibition at the National Museum of Bulgaria in Sofia. And why they were interested in us, I'll never know. They did a great installation, really ingenious, so enthusiastic. It was a Bulgarian Fund for Women. And at the opening, there was an unannounced guest who showed up, who happened to be the Russian ambassador.
Oh.
Of course, the people in the crowd recognized her and harassed her.
Oh.
Until she left.
See, it works.
So, and all kinds of things happened after that. The nationalists wanted the show taken down. Someone pushed the the harasser, people got arrested. It was very exciting. That didn't excite me, but the idea that our work would mean something in such a faraway place. I mean, I didn't know very much about Bulgaria till I got there, and the idea that our work resonated with, with artists and young women there, it was a thrill.
Mm-hmm. It does sound thrilling. It's always surprising to see just how far creativity can reach, and it truly does end up all the way around the world. What do you hope for the future of Guerrilla Girls, the next 40 years and beyond?
You mean if we don't live forever?
Either way, immortality is on the table. I hear that a certain billionaire is striving to do so by going to sleep at 5 p.m. and eating alfalfa all day. So we never know.
Sleeping in a freezer.
We have different ideas about that, for one thing. My idea is that the Guerrilla Girls ends when we end, but thousands and thousands of people are still doing this work, and they do it their own way with their own ideas instead of trying to fit into what we did. And because I think it is a really interesting body of work altogether. You can kind of compare it to what was going on at each moment in history. And I think that'll be very interesting. I think, I hope people will be interested in it after we're all gone. But I think there has to be different kind of activism, different kind of groups, and people doing it their way. So to have people come in and try to keep doing it our way, I just don't think that's a good idea.
Before I open it up to the audience for questions, what do you like most about your work and how you do it?
Can we meet next week and I can answer that?
Yes, absolutely can.
I can say something. What I like most is the eureka moment, where you have this idea that twists something around that's never been seen before, and even though you're talking about the most horrible things that ever happened in the world, you can't help but be the human beings who are sitting around making this happen and go, wow. And that is a moment we all have in whatever we do in life, and that's a good moment. You don't get a lot of those.
Actually, I would say that it's realizing that something I've known for a long time but forgotten about can be given life and can mean something. You forget a lot about what you've learned in the past, like remembering Brenda Starr's boyfriend. I'm just shocked I came up with that name. And putting it all together, we have a wealth of information in experience in ourselves, and to somehow put it together in a way that it means something to someone when you realize that is really exciting. I don't know whether I like the beginning of a project or the end of the project, but it's somehow that mixture of stuff that comes together and becomes something that makes sense.
That is always a great feeling when it does make sense, when it all comes together and you start to see, like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted. Very lovely. And it's been such a pleasure. And I know that the audience has questions. And so I would love to open it up for questions, which again end in a question mark. And someone from VSA will bring a microphone to you. So please just raise your hand and we will get to as many questions as we can.
But Roxane, I'd like to have an evening where we ask you questions.
I'm always here to answer your questions.
Maybe that should be the next Getty project program.
Yes.
Yeah, you can ask any of us.
Yeah, all three of us are available for questions.
Ask Roxane questions.
Hi. I wanted to ask you about your anonymity. Do you have plans for an epic reveal? Or are you going to take your identity, your anonymity to the grave? Is this something that will be sort of like a secret society at Yale where upon your death, you they find out what secret society.
Their skull and bones.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we should refuse to answer that.
I think that if we took our masks off, it would be all over. You know, I work really well under this mask because it's a mask, and it allows me to speak truth to power without retaliation. And I would be very hard. I mean, the American Revolution was fought by anonymous characters. So I think for myself, it would kind of be over.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm just wondering if you use the same kind of questions that you put out into the world. Do you use them on yourselves in terms of who is part of Guerrilla Girls and who is a membership and how you think about diversity and race and class and all those things?
I didn't understand I couldn't hear it.
Do we ask ourselves the same questions? Do we make the same demands of ourselves as we do of the world?
Microphone.
I think the answer to that is of course, you're always second guessing yourself. You always feel you're not doing it exactly right. You could be better. Everyone could do stuff better. I mean, that's a human thing, and certainly we do that.
And it's always a process. It's always a learning process, and you don't start out being perfect. I mean, we are bad feminists too. There are lots of, aspirations that we have that we don't really, we are not able to live up to every day because we are human. We're not perfect.
Other questions?
Hello. Kate said that when her opinion of when you're gone, the Guerrilla Girls will end. Is that a consensus among the group, or are there other options on the table that are still being discussed?
It's under discussion.
And there are a couple questions down front, in addition to other places. And shout out to this young person who is doing amazing work. Oh, and look at everyone. Yes. Hands and working together.
Thank you. I was just wondering if any one person or group has ever tried to imitate and try to co-opt Guerrilla Girls or the movement.
I couldn't hear that.
Oh, are there any groups trying to co-opt us? Yes, and it would be great. The world needs more feminist masked avengers than just us.
I wanted to ask, what were the building thoughts and kind of discussions you had as a smaller group when you were still kind of building Guerrilla Girls?
Our history is so interesting in a way because it really started with this one poster. So it wasn't like we got a bunch of people together and we just said, well, what should we do? Things suck, everything, blah, blah, blah. What should we do? We came with this idea, and everyone loved the idea of doing street posters, because who doesn't want to do street posters? And so it really started off that way. It wasn't just talking about it. As we went on, of course, we would argue about every single thing, every sentence, every strategy, how to do this, how to do that. And out of that, always try to make something that was different than anyone had seen before in some way.
She just closed a ring on her watch.
Hi, thanks for this great talk. I'm curious, I guess it's a little bit of a follow-up on how you structure yourselves and how you kind of disperse or gather your information among yourselves. That has obviously had to evolve over the years. You know, initially it was your Rolodex and your telephone, and now, I don't know, a signal chat. Like, how do you do it, and how often, and what's the structure?
Oh, don't forget the fax machine. We used a fax machine
right.
a lot. That was the first way we could communicate across the country.
Oh.
Well,
I have just one word for it: Zoom.
And how frequently? Is there a structure to your?
Every day.
yeah, you know, we run an organization too. I mean, besides creating work, we don't have a staff. You know, we are answering email every day. We are setting up travel arrangements, all of that. It really is it's become a life's work.
You need a Getty intern.
No, we would never have an unpaid intern. That would be like having, we'd have to have an employee.
My question is about, it seems like there's so much to be mad about in the world, and people seem to react a different way to women's rage than they do to other things. All people, women and other people. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about rage and how that is part of your art. And this is a question for Roxane, too.
That's a really good question, because I think we made a decision from the beginning, although many of us feel rage, and I understand exactly what you're saying, we made a decision not to do rage in our work, you know, to try to change people's minds by drawing them in, not yelling at them, and not, you know, feeling so enraged that we can't even do anything, and that worked for us. But what do you think about rage? I mean, rage we have to feel that way in this world as we know it. But we decided to try to make a different kind of art about it. Maybe we were wrong. I don't know.
I think it's a wonderful situation to be in, where you're angry and happy at the same time. And maybe that's, you know, the nature of women's rage, and I wanted to ask you about this too, about all our jokes about violence. Do you find them, you have a whole idea of appropriate and inappropriate humor. Do you find any of our humor inappropriate?
Me?
Yeah. I mean, we make fun of rape paintings in the GRI.
I mean, that seems like a fair response to violence. I don't judge art in that way, in that there are a lot of different ways to protest, and sometimes biting humor is a really good way to protest the casual ways in which the desecration of women's bodies has been used as art. Like, yeah, let's make fun of that. And more importantly, let's make fun of the people who thought that was a good idea. I'm all about, where do we direct the humor, or where do we direct the rage? And I think so much is said about women's rage, and so often our rage is discouraged. And we're told to be quiet and to not be angry, and that you can't, like, no one's gonna hear you when you're angry. But like, if you spend 5 minutes reading the news, if you are not full of rage, I question your values. I just do, because this is rage-inducing stuff. And there is blind rage, and then there is intelligent rage. There is directed rage. And so I try to be productive with my rage. And for me, as a writer, I use rage as an engine. And I have, you know, a brain. So I am able to have rage and other thoughts. I am able to feel rage and not shoot someone in the face 3 times. So I really think, especially for people who are women, non-binary, marginalized in some way, because Lord knows Black women's rage has been demonized over and over again. We really have to redirect these conversations when we're asked about rage. I think your question is a good one, to be clear. I think it's an important one. And I think we have to always question why people are asking us about our rage, why they're so troubled by our rage. Why aren't you more troubled by the rageful things? Why aren't you critiquing the rageful things instead of worrying about my little feelings? They're gonna be fine because I can self-regulate and I have a therapist. It's gonna be okay. So I really hope that, especially now when I think there is a level of rage building in the country that is very healthy and very important and very necessary, that we not let people derail that and try and make it seem like we should be tolerating absolutely any of this, because we shouldn't. We should be full of rage. I'm a Libra too.
I have a question. One of my challenges is, how do we convince men that feminism is not undermining them?
We don't.
Well,
honestly.
I've always wanted to write a book about, how to be a male feminist.
I mean, that's for you to figure out. Like, that's between you and your God.
But it's the world. It's the problem in the world.
It is a very real problem in the world. But again, the idea that we are supposed to tell men how to feel welcome in feminism is, and we talked about this backstage, it's a question I'm asked all the time, because generally there'll be like 3 or 4 men at one of my events, and like sold out events, and they'll be like, aren't you worried about men not being here? Like, why would I be?
Well,
it's good.
I'm worried about them not killing us.
I am worried about them not killing us too, but there's nothing we can do to convince them to not kill us. There's nothing we can do to convince them to treat us as people. Men need to talk to other men because men respect other men. And this is just my opinion, but like there's nothing, and the thing, we really have to like question that urge to like, how do we convince them? We don't. We give them space to participate. We give them space to be their whole selves, perfectly and imperfectly, and let them know that you are welcome, and being welcomed does not mean you get to control the discourse or the space, or you don't get to fill it. You get to be there. That is welcoming. And unfortunately, so many men feel entitled to more. Like, how can I be a male feminist? By being a male feminist, Jesus Christ.
See, I see it as a political imperative right now. So I think we can continue that conversation, another time. But I think that it's a real imperative now. It's kind of the way the world might be saved, because a lot of the aggression now is aggravated, male aggression, and it is trying to take over. Take back whatever it was that it lost.
It is, but when you, like, for example, let's look at ICE. ICE is predominantly men being encouraged by other men to wear masks, to anonymize themselves, oddly enough, to commit grave crimes against humanity, for which they will eventually pay a price. And as a feminist, as a very passionate feminist, I would love to believe that we could sit them down and have a chat and everything would be okay. But when we look at, what happened with Renee Nicole Good, she was like, I'm not scared of you. I'm not mad at you. I mean, she was doing something very feminist, and she was leaving. We are not going to be able to solve this problem among women. I would love for that to be the case, but if women could solve the problem of masculinity, of toxic masculinity, that problem would have been solved millennia ago. We are very good at that kind of thing. Oh, the men. And there are like 4 here too, which I love. You gents are doing great. Other questions, you can raise your hand and the microphone will find its way to you. Here, yes, what's up? Yeah, oh, okay, yeah. Someone has a mic and then we'll come down to you. I see you.
My question is kind of short and sweet, but earlier somebody said that critical thinking is not being taught anymore, and I was wondering, was it ever taught, and how do we navigate that it's not being taught in the age of information?
Microphone.
That's an excellent point. And in a way, when I said that, I probably was being too completely broad, because it is taught some places. But in general, our education has become, so many schools are kind of rote. You know, they have a system, you got to get through this workbook, you got to get through that workbook. And we have we need a much more, I don't even know what to call it, but much more questioning kind of education, even in the classroom itself. And I don't think it's true that, I do think that there are many classrooms where people are trying to do that, but we're in an age of indoctrination and these standard tests and things like that don't really allow for exploring a lot of these things. And I think it's really hurting students all over this country, because no matter what your stupid views are, you have to be able to think about why other people hold other views and what that all means, and what the history of something you might be for, what that history really was. Did it really work? Is it really what we should all follow?
We have a question up here.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm the blob in the distance.
But you're a cute blob.
Oh, thank you so much. You're a beautiful blob.
Thank you.
I am also of the opinion that it's not our responsibility nor within our power to convince men to see women and femmes as human. I'm wondering what each of your reaction is whenever, as I'm sure you've been told, whenever you're told that you are a man-hater for standing up for feminist values.
I take it as a compliment. I do. I mean, the thing is, you can call me a man-hater all you want, but anyone who knows me, anyone who's familiar with my work, who has seen me sort of move my way through the world, understands that I don't hate men, I hate misogyny. And unfortunately, a lot of men are misogynists, so you can do that math.
That was really good. I wanted that.
I think that answers the question for all of us.
Hi. Since we seem to live in a country that says that if you love apples, you must hate oranges, how does your art navigate that question? Just because that we're for us, it does not mean that we're against anyone else.
I don't know why we don't think there's enough for everybody. A part of the apples and oranges question is that the apples want what the oranges have and think there's not enough for both apples and oranges. I think if we realize that there's enough, we live in an incredibly abundant time, and there's enough for everyone if we would just learn to, share a little bit, or not to think that success is about having what other people don't have. No response.
Hello, up here?
Thank you. Oh, up there? Okay. And then we'll come to this gentleman here.
Thanks.
Or this person, rather.
As a New Yorker, I really appreciated all the work that you did in New York, especially when you began and did the street art. And I'm wondering if people from smaller markets have called on the Guerrilla Girls to come out and to do street art there. You know, people in Kansas City, where there are museums in Kansas. Like, if you've gone to smaller markets, if artists in smaller markets have asked you to come out and do some of your activism there, and how you've responded to that.
So you can look a little bit of that up. We do that all the time. And we're going to Fargo next week, which is a small place. But we've been all over the USA, even from our beginning. You know, we were always invited, mostly by schools, but sometimes other kinds of institutions. You know, lately we're invited by museums a lot, but that wasn't how we began. And we do workshops with people in all these places. We'll be doing that in Fargo, where we help them do their own, you know, do their own political art, action, whatever, for anything they believe in. So it's not about what we want, it's about what they want. And we've had some incredible, incredible people just doing really, really amazing things. And what we want to do is plant this idea, again, that you have to say things a little differently to get into people's brains. And there are lots of different ways to do it, and everyone has their own unique ways somewhere in there. And we just try to get that all out. So I'm looking forward to the students we're going to be with next week. But we've probably done hundreds of these over the years. I mean, it's not something that's publicized. You know, we're bad at publicizing our stuff anyway, but we completely believe in this and just love working with people. Everyone has such really great ideas. You know, it's hard to bring them to reality. Even for us today, we're so used to it, but it's hard to do it. And watching that happen and helping with that happen is a great experience.
All right, we have one last question up there.
Thank you so much. Guerrilla Girls, I've loved your work since I was working on my dissertation over 30 years ago. And Roxane Gay, obviously, you're amazing. And by the way, I'm not a gentleman, I'm a gentle butch.
Thank you. I love a gentle butch.
Thank you. I have a deeply practical question. How is it that you manage, to the Guerrilla Girls, how is it that you manage to wear the mask all day long without you dying of heat stroke or maybe needing some special salve that you put on your skin? You know, for those of us who might be interested in, you know, pursuing that methodology, what tips would you give for the wearing of a mask for 30-some, 40-some years?
Well, the secret is we have little fans inside these masks. And actually, it's a great facial.
Don't they say no pain, no gain?
Anyway, that's a great final question. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out tonight.